Well, hey everybody, Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop here, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode, of course, is brought to you by the lovely folks over at La Marzocco Espresso Machines, lamarzocousa.com. Check them out by emailing also info@lamarzocousa.com. Their machines have been around. I mean, 1927 is when they started, and since then, they are just known for innovation, dependability, beauty. They've been serving the coffee shop community for that long, almost 100 years. And what drives them is creating a dependable core of success for the coffee shop. If your machine, your espresso machine that makes the espresso, is working well, then you can work well. And so go check them out over at lamarzocousa.com. Another website you should check out, by the way, for our next sponsor is Rattleware, rattleware.com. Smallwares. We all need them. We all kind of assemble them over time or in one fell swoop. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. When they don't, it sucks. It's not great. And it's because it's like, this is small. It should work. That's what Rattleware thinks, at least. And that's why they exist, is to make smallwares that just work. If you're in the market for smallwares in your business, and kind of like who is not, then going to rattleware.com should be the first thing you do, because they are all about being in the background, consistently providing you functional equipment and smallwares that just work. So check them out again over at rattleware.com. Now, today's episode, I wanted to talk about something. Maybe this is like super niche, right? Because we talk a lot of times about things like management and leadership. And sometimes people tell me, okay, well, Keys to the Shop is a podcast on coffee, but some of the things we talk about can be applied to a large variety of different life contexts. Today's episode is probably not one of those episodes because we're talking about trade shows and coffee events, but still, you could probably apply something. That's just the way life is. But there's also not just trade shows, there's also throwdowns, networking events, summits, virtual and in person. And one of the things that I find is the most frustrating about these events is when you enter an event with a consumer mentality as a professional. A professional, to me, is somebody who is, yeah, you are being catered to. These talks that people like myself give and panel discussion, these are meant to give you. So you are receiving this information. But there is a certain, this is kind of the big theme here, there's a certain amount of self-knowledge and preparation that you need to have already done in order for that stuff to really stick and be worth your while. So if you go to a trade show or an event or a summit, one of the first things that you should be thinking is, why am I going to this? What do I want to get out of this? And therefore, what do I need to put into it? Now I'm talking about like the ticket price. What do I need to put into it personally, mentally? What are my emotions in this? Now, if you sit back and you're just like, just entertain me, or this better wow me. I better have like at least 6 epiphanies each day, or else this ticket was not worth it, right? That's just not the right mindset. And I've seen people sort of fold their arms and, not be involved, and then have the audacity, kind of like a customer who complains about a drink being cold because they've been drinking it for 3 hours. Sometimes you only have yourself to blame because you haven't really accepted the circumstance you find yourself in. I will say this. That's the first thing. I will say this though. You get out what you put in. So the preparation is, what do I want to learn? What do I want to get out of this? Why do I want to get those things out of this? Because it's worth it if what you get out of it is something you can use to then grow the value of what you received. So if you receive good information from one of my talks, for example, and then you do nothing with it. You might not think it was worth it. Nothing changed in my business. I can't believe it. Well, guess what? The only reason that happened is because you didn't apply the knowledge that you gained. So it's not only that you need to prepare yourself before you go to answer the questions, why and what do I want to get out of this and why do I want that? It's how much time are you willing to dedicate to what you anticipate getting out of this being put into play in your business after you return home. And if you don't have those things laid out already, then you really haven't counted the cost. Now, you may have signed up as an impulse to be like, you know what the heck? Let's go to Coffee Fest. Let's go to Houston. There's a great coffee scene there. I've never been to Texas before. I want to try all these funky processing methods. I want to watch the competitions, and it's very fun. Now, if you already understood, I probably won't get anything out of this business related, then anything else that you get out of it is gravy. But there's a part of you that once you start seeing the bill for dinner and hotel and travel and tickets and access and all that stuff, you're going to start to ask yourself, this was fun until I got the bill, until I realized I wanted to get something out of it that subconsciously I didn't allow myself to really make explicit to myself. So even if you're just going for fun, I think you still need to kind of think to yourself, what about what I get out of this? How is this going to actually make my business better? The only way that any information you get from a trade show can make your business better is if you use that information consistently within your business. And that's hard to do only because business demands you use your mind and your emotions and all of your energy on the things that are the status quo. Afterwards, you just, for some reason, you don't have the energy to apply to that new thing that in the moment you knew. You were away from your business, you were at the show, and in that moment it clicked so well. But then when you're back in the normal run-of-the-mill stuff, that conviction you had, right, it just disappears, and you're like, well, maybe it was just drunk on the experience, right? And I made this decision to implement this new strategy, but maybe I wasn't thinking it through. I would, in fact, say you should probably discipline yourself to apply what you learned in spite of that feeling of sort of malaise, or I don't feel as inspired as I did when I was at the show. Because that's what one of the main things a show or an event does. It takes you outside of your context, so it gives more space to your mind that didn't have much space when you were in the work to agree to things that your just work-a-day self would never have thought of and didn't have the margin to think of. So you got to take a little bit of a step of faith at that point and say, like, no, I was in my right mind. I remember taking notes on this. I even talked to my staff about this afterwards, and we all agreed this was the right thing. But even if I feel right now that it's not, I believe that version of myself at that moment that actually was a good idea. Okay. Does that apply 100%? Maybe not. But again, the only reason that would be a reality for you, like something that you follow through with, is because you put at least some planning into it for what you wanted to get out, why you wanted to get out of it, why you wanted to get that out of it, and then how you're going to apply it in your cafe. Basically, you have to put it in your schedule, you have to budget for it and everything else. So the other thing I would say to get the most out of a networking event or a summit or an educational experience, a trade show like Coffee Fest or the SDA, is that you are going to talk to people. And even if it's uncomfortable for you to do so, if you have questions from a speaker, like I will say as a speaker, I wish people would ask more questions. Even if you can't get to me after my talk is done, you know how to email me, you know how to text, or at least DM on Instagram. There's all sorts of ways to connect. And don't let yourself get talked out of that by yourself. Follow through with it. Trust that intuition and ask that question. Have a conversation and pursue understanding. And I think that's really a big thing here. You have two routes to go down. You can have the accumulation of information and novelty, or you can have the planned pursuit of understanding and application. So which experience do you want when you go to one of these events? And I think that's probably all I have to say about this at the moment, but it's something that I think if you apply it to your situation, if I'm going to see you at Coffee Fest in New York, or at an event in the future, or if it's just local, then you're going to have a much better time. You're going to see the value and the reward for your attendance. And by the way, you'll also probably end up helping somebody else. As I always say to every audience I'm at, talk to each other, because you literally have the keys to somebody else's shop. You do. We do this in the key holder coaching groups, and I see it all the time. We just had our last meeting today for our current cohort. And as I'm getting ready to start a new cohort of people in the key holder coaching group, if you want to apply, there's still time. The same thing applies. I know that in community, we can unlock the potential of each other's cafes or roasteries or whatever it is. So you can pursue that community while you're with other people. That's why you're there in person, is not just to be an audience member, but to participate with others live and to get to know people, right? So that's what I would say. And hopefully that's something that helps you. And if you have any questions about stuff, email chris@keystotheshop.com. And I'm looking forward to meeting some of you out there or in a future show. So as always, we'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.